Hello everyone, this is Lexicon Architect coming at you with another budget commander list. And today we're going to be looking at a color that I don't typically like to play, but I finally found a commander that's a bit different than the average mono red deck. Most mono red decks are very aggro or they're some type of burn variant, but today this is going to be different, a little bit different. So we're going to be looking at Glóin Glóin Dwarf Emissary. So he's a 3 mana 3/3 that says whenever you cast a historic spell, you create a treasure token, and its ability only triggers once per turn. So an historic spell is either an artifact, a legendary, or a saga. But the main thing that we're going to be doing with this deck is we're going to be goading creatures. So basically, goading a creature is forcing a creature an opponent controls to attack someone else besides yourself. So all we have to do is tap this commander, sacrifice a treasure, and then we can go target creature. So until your next turn, that creature attacks each combat if able, and attacks another player other than you if able. So for the creature package, we're going to be playing Academy Manufacturer that says if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead you create one of each. So every time we make a treasure, we're also going to be making a clue and a food token, which will be good because the clue will either allow us to pay 2 to draw a card, or the food we can sacrifice for 2 to gain 3 life. Then we're playing a Tushi, the Blazing Sky. It is a 4 mana 4/4 with flying and trample that when it dies, we can either exile the top 2 cards of our library, and then until the end of our next turn, we may play those cards, or we can create 3 treasure tokens with a Tushi when it dies. So we have these options available to us, and you will select the option that you think is more beneficial to you, either the treasure or exiling the top 2 cards. Next, we are playing Baloth Entertainer. It's a 5 mana 2/5 that says creatures your opponents control with less power than it are goaded. Um, so basically, we're gonna goad everything with power 2 or less. No, not actually 2 or less. 1 or less, and then those excuse me, and then those creatures are gonna attack someone besides you. But if we could find some way to buff this guy, let's say he's a 4/7, so all creatures with power less than 4 are goaded. So whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature control dies, you will create a treasure token. Then we're going to play Bothersome Quasit. It's a 3 mana 3/2 with Menace. Says goaded creatures your opponents control cannot block. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, gold target creature an opponent controls. So anytime we cast a non-creature spell, we will be able to go to a creature, and sometimes we may be free to swing into an opponent because if they have a goaded creature, they cannot block with it. Then we're going to play Burnished Heart. It's a 3 mana 2/2 that will trigger our commander. If this is the historic spell that we cast, and then we can sacrifice this to search up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Then we're going to play Cavern Horde Dragon. It's a 9 mana 6/6 that says this spell costs X to cast, where X is the greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. It has flying, trample, and haste. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. Next, we're going to look at Goria Forged Tyrant. It is a 9 mana 5/4 with flying and haste that has affinity for artifacts, because it's going to cost 1 less to cast for each artifact we control. And then when it attacks, we can exile the top 5 cards of our library, and we may cast an artifact spell from among them, and if we do, it has affinity for artifacts as well. Then we play Foundry Inspector to make our artifacts cost 1 less to cast. We're playing Gadrak the Crown Scourge. It's a 3-mana 5/4 with flying that cannot attack unless you control 4 more artifacts. And at the beginning of our end step, we will create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. Then we're going to play Gimli of the Glittering Caves. It's a 3-mana 1/1 with double strike that says whenever another legendary creature enters the battlefield under our control, we put a 1/1 counter on it, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we will create a treasure token. So this can be a good attacker for us or a good blocker since it has double strike. So double strike, well, first strike damage will go through first. So if this is a 3/3 blocking a 3/3, the 3/3 will die because we'll deal first strike damage to it first. Then we're going to play Gimli Counter of Kills, 4-mana 4/3 with Trample. That says whenever a creature an opponent control dies, it'll deal 1 damage to its creature's controller. Then we're going to play Goldspan Dragon, a 5-mana 4/4 with Flying and Haste. That says whenever it attacks or becomes a target of a spell, we will create a treasure token. And all treasure tokens we control have add 2 mana of any one color instead of adding 1 mana of any color. Then we're going to play Grenzo. It's a 2-mana 2/2 that says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, we can choose one. We can either go target creature, or we can exile the top card of our library, and until of our turn, we may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though for any mana to cast that spell. Then we're going to play Hedron Detonator, a 3-mana 2/3 that says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under our control, we will deal 1 damage to target opponent. And then we can sacrifice 2 artifacts, and if we do, we exile the top card of our library, and we may play that card this turn. Then we're going to be playing Ingenious Artilist, a 3-mana 3/1 that says whenever 1 or more artifacts enter our battlefield under our control, it deals that much damage to each opponent. So if we make an artifact, we will be able to ping each opponent for 1. Then we're going to play Ironmar because it's a mana dork for us and also can generate us a treasure token from our commander. So we'll get a treasure, and then we can tap this to add a red. The Familiar is a 4-mana 2/2 with flying that makes historic spells cost 1 less to cast. Then we're going to be playing an artifact creature that's also an enchantment. It's a 3-mana 2/2 that equipped creature gets +2/+2 in menace. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you goad each creature that player controls. So let's say we swing into someone that has 6 creatures. For whatever reason, we get combat damage in this. All 6 of those creatures, if they are able to attack, they will have to attack our opponents and not us until the end of our next turn. Then we're going to be playing Glóin the Diversion, a 3-mana 3/3 with First Strike. And it says for 2, we can sacrifice an artifact or a creature. So we can sacrifice one of our treasures, and then we can go target creature. Then we're playing Magda Brazen Outlaw. It's a 2-mana 2/1 that gives our other dwarves +1/+0. And then whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, you make a treasure token. So if we tap our commander to sack a treasure and Goad, we will basically get that treasure back. And then if we have 5 treasures to sacrifice, we can either look for an artifact or a dragon card and put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle our library. Next, we're going to play Professional Facebreaker, 3-mana 2/3 with Menace that whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat to a player, you create a treasure token. And then if you want to, you can sacrifice a treasure token to exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. Then we're going to be playing Reckless Fireweaver, a 2-mana 1/3 that says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Then we're going to be playing Solemn Simulacrum. It's a 4-mana 2/2 that when it ETBs, you may search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, and then when this dies, you may draw a card. Then we obviously are going to be playing Torbrand because it's a 4-mana 2/4 that says if a red source you control will deal combat damage to an opponent or a permanent they control, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. Then we're going to be playing Trakos, Scourge of Krug. It's a 4 mana 7/7 that says when it ETBs, it enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap during your next untap step. But whenever we cast a historic spell, which is either an artifact, legendary, or saga, this creature will become untapped and it will be a 7/7 with trample. So it's a big creature for 4 mana that we can easily keep untapping. Then we're going to be playing Vengeful Ancestor, which is a 4 mana 3/4 with flying, that whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can go target creature, and then whenever that goaded creature attacks, it'll deal 1 damage to that controller. And then finally, for more token generation, we play Zorn, a 3 mana 3/2 that says whenever you create 1 or more treasure tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. Then for sorceries, we're going to be playing Coronation of Chaos. It's a 3 mana sorcery that says up to 3 target creatures cannot block this turn, and you go them. So you can go 3 creatures. It could be any target creature, and then those creatures will fight among your opponents against them instead of you, and you could just watch them basically kill each other instead of attacking you. This one is very good too. It's a 4 mana sorcery with it's called Disrupt Decorum. You can goad all creatures you don't control. So for 4 mana, we can goad every single creature an opponent controls unless they counter this spell, and then they have to decide how they attack each other. Then we're going to be playing Faithless Looting just to discard 2 and then draw 2, or we could just flash it back for 3 if it's in the graveyard. Then we play Inspired Tinkering. It is a 5 mana spell that we exile the top 3 cards of our library, and then until the end of our next turn, and then it will also create 3 treasure tokens for 5 mana. Then we're going to be playing Pirate's Pillage. It is a 4 mana sorcery. As an additional cost to play this card, we can discard a card, we draw 2, and then we create 2 treasures. Then we're going to play Reckless Impulse, 2 mana sorcery that exiles the top 2 cards of our library, and then until the end of our next turn, you may play those cards. Then we play Seize the Spoils, which is a 3 mana sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. We will draw 2 and create a treasure. And then finally, we're playing a 1 mana sorcery that simply makes us a treasure token for 1 red, and then we can flash it back for 3 to make us another token. For instance, we're going to be playing a Braid, so we can either deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy an artifact. We play Big Score, a 4 mana spell that says as an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card, we will draw 2, then make 2 treasures. We play Cathartic Pyre either to deal 3 damage to a creature or a planeswalker, or discard up to 2 cards and then draw that many cards. Then we're playing a new card from the Lord of the Rings set called Gimli's Fury. It is a 2 mana spell that gives another creature +3/+2 until the end of the turn. And if it is legendary, it also gains trample. Then we are also playing another new card from the Lord of the Rings set called Improvised Club. It is a 2 mana spell that says as an additional cost, either sacrifice an artifact or a creature, and it deals 4 damage to any target. Then we play Lightning Bolt to deal 3 damage to any target. Then we also play Thrill of Possibility to discard a card to draw 2. And then we are playing Unexpected Windfall, which is the same thing as Big Score, to discard a card to draw 2 and make 2 treasures. And then for artifacts, we're going to be playing Arcane Signet, Commander's Fear. We're playing Dragon Spark Reactor because it is a 2 mana artifact that when it ETBs or another artifact enters the battlefield, we put a charge counter on it. And then for 4, we can sacrifice it to deal damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target player, and that much damage to target creature. Then we play Glittering Stockpile. which is a good mana rock for us because for 3 mana, it allows us to add a red. And then every time we tap it, we put a stash counter on it. And then whenever we feel like sacrificing it, we can add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of stash counters on it. Then we're playing Ichor Wellspring because it's a 2 mana artifact that when it ETBs, we draw a card. And then whenever it's put from the graveyard, put into the graveyard from the battlefield, we will draw an additional card. Then we play Lightning Greaves for protection. We play Mind Stone to add a colorless mana, and then if we tap 1, we can sacrifice it to draw a card. Then we're going to be playing Prize Statue. It is a 2 mana spell that says when it enters the battlefield or is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, we will create a treasure token. Soul Ring for ramp, Swift Boots for protection, Thought Vessel to add a colorless mana and give us no maximum hand size. And then we're going to be looking at Treasure Chest. It is a 3 mana artifact that we can sacrifice for 4, and then we will roll a d20. So if we roll 1, we're trapped. We lose 3 life. But if we roll between 2 or 9, we will create 5 treasure tokens. If we roll between 10 to 19, we will gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. And then if we roll a nat 20, we can search our library for a card, and if it's an artifact, you may put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card into your hand and then shuffle. Then we're going to be playing Treasure Map, which is a 2 mana artifact that we can pay 1 to scry 1. We will put a landmark counter on it, and then if there are 3 or more landmark counters on it, remove those counters, then transform it. We will create 3 colorless treasure tokens, and then it becomes this. So it becomes a land that can either add a colorless mana for us, or we can sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. And then finally, our last artifact is Wayfarer's Bauble. It is a 1 mana artifact that we can pay 2 to sacrifice and put a basic land onto the battlefield tapped and shuffled. As far as enchantments, we're going to be playing City on Fire. It is an 8 mana enchantment with Convoke, so we can use our creatures and we can use our creatures to make this cost less. If we do have enough creatures, it could either be free or it could be 3 mana. But it says if a source you control will deal damage to a permanent or a player, it deals triple instead. Then we're going to be playing Aether Grid. It is a 3 mana enchantment that says we can tap 2 untap artifacts to deal 1 damage to any target. So let's say we have a bunch of tokens. We can, treasure tokens, we can tap those. And then we can ping everyone. No, we can't ping everyone, but we do have to choose a target for this. But if we have a bunch of untapped artifacts and we're not threatened in any way, we can just tap as many as we want. And for every 2 we tapped, it'll deal 1 damage to any target. Next, we're going to be playing Popular Entertainer. It is a 2 mana legendary enchantment background that says commander creatures you control have whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you go that target creature. So if we can get in damage with one of our creatures, we can go to an opponent's creature. Then we're going to be playing Shiny Impetus. It's a 3 mana aura that we enchant creature. And then that enchanted creature is going to get +2/+2, and it's going to become goaded. And then whenever that creature attacks, you will create a treasure token. So we get a treasure token out of this. Then we play one of my favorite enchantments, which is Sticky Fingers. The enchanted creature has Menace, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we will create a treasure, and then whenever that creature dies, we will draw a card. Then we're going to be playing a saga called The Brothers' War. It is a 4 mana saga that will generate us 2 tap treasure tokens on the first stage of the saga. And then on the second stage, we choose 2 target players until your next turn. Each creature they control attacks the other chosen player if able. So by the time this gets to Saga 2, if it's still on the battlefield, you can choose 2 opponents, and then they figure out how they're going to attack each other. And then on the final step, it deals X damage to any target, and then X damage to any other target, where X is the number of artifacts you control. So if we have 5 artifacts, we deal 5 damage to any target, and then 5 damage up to any other target. Then our last saga is There and Back Again. It is a 5-mana saga from the Lord of the Rings set that says up to 1 target creature cannot block for as long as you control this. The ring will tempt this. Second level, we can search for a mountain card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. And then the final step is we create a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying and haste that says whenever this creature dies, we will create 14 treasure tokens. And finally, the land base. I'm just going to go over the 4 most important ones. Castle Breath is a utility land for us that we can tap 3 to pump our creatures by +1. Then we play Inventor's Fair because at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control 3 or more artifacts, we gain 1 life. And then for 4, we can sacrifice it to search for an artifact, reveal it, put it into our hand, then shuffle our library, and then only activate this ability if we control 3 more artifacts. Then we're playing a new land in Mines of Moria. For 4 mana, we can exile 3 cards from our graveyard to create 2 treasure. And then finally, we're playing Sokusan Crucible of Defiance. It is a 4 mana channel spell that will become 1 less to cast for each legendary creature we control. And then we can create 2 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens, and they gain haste until the end of the turn. So that is the deck. We curve out at 2 and 3. So by turn 2, we're going to be popping off, or by turn 3, we're going to start popping off. We'll be playing a bunch of cards, doing a bunch of stuff, and that's the deck. This deck is going to run you anywhere between 155 to 160, depending on where you buy your cards. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It will be uploaded to YouTube shortly with all my social media links. If you like this style of content, please subscribe to my channel, and I hope you all have a great night.